Comparison is the thief of joy. Those wise words were brought to us by #26, the OG Rough Rider himself. Our Spanish homies might refer to him as Tío Theo, aka the Bane of the Buffalo, the big game baddie himself, the former president of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. He's kind of a historical figure, so he might have known something. So of course, instead of listening to him, we will be comparing salaries in this video. Sorry, Teddy. Sometimes you just gotta know where you are so you can get to where you want to be. Statistically, 90% of us are going to get bummed out by this video because, well, we're not on the top of the food chain, but I promise you this video will end on a happy note. So since you're like me, you want to know how much do top 10% earners in the US make as a salary? How do the rest of us stack up? What do these people do for a living? And most importantly, you want to know the actionable intel. What do the top 10% earners do differently with their money compared to everyone else? And maybe you and I, normal people, can use this data to move up the economic ranks. To put it another way, I'm trying to get this bread, y'all. You coming with? If you don't know, my name is Raj. I'm a weird guy. All right, let's get into it. The first thing I did when researching this video was, well, I Googled it. All right, so I found this article from unbiased.com titled "How Much Income Puts You in the Top 1%, 5%, or 10% by Rachel Carey." Let's just get to the high notes first and then we'll break this down. So if you want to be in the top 10% by salary in the US, you'll need to earn at least 6 figures. There's a lot of variation in earnings brackets given that people live in different states, which affects cost of living, average income, and job opportunities. The top 5 states with the highest earners were all on the West and East Coast. I could have made a joke at the middle of the country's expense right there, but I chose peace. And if you appreciate that, let me know by clicking the like button. Unless, of course, you want the smoke. You want some of this Kansas? Kansas City isn't even in Kansas. What is that even about? All right, side note, you can make money on the internet these days, so location might be irrelevant. Getting to the upper echelon can seem impossible, but it doesn't have to be. A financial advisor can help maximize earnings. Great time to note, I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't financial advice, just some financial show and tell here. So unpacking this data further, we see that a 2021 study by the Economic Policy Institute found that the top 10% of earners earned on average $167,639 in 2020. But the top half and the bottom half of the top 10% of earners had a significant gap in how much they earned. Those in the top half earned around $223,000, while those in the bottom half earned about $133,500, nearly $90,000 less. Top 5% earners earned $335,891 in 2021, which is up $19,000 from 2020. Top 1% earners earned an average annual income of $819,324, and the top 0.1% of Americans earned on average $3.3 million. Now here's the crazy part. Annual wages rose fastest for the top 1% of earners, up 9.4%, and up 18.5% for the top 0.1%. The bottom 90% of earners saw real earnings fall 0.2%. So according to this data, the rich are in fact getting richer. Hey, is the money gonna trickle down anytime soon, or do I need to stalk the next big rapper and wait for them to throw cash in a big crowd? All I'm saying is these things were made for a reason. So just to break it down in a nice simple table, the article provides this graph from the Social Security Administration, and we can see the average annual wages range from $3.2 million to $173,000. The difference between the top 10% and the top 5% is about $170,000, or almost 2x their annual income. The difference between the top 5% and the top 1% is about $480,000, or more than 2x their income, and the difference between the top 1% and the top 0.1% is about $2.38 million, or about 3x their income. So effectively, every step up requires a 2x on your income. Let's compare this to the average salary in the United States. According to a Forbes article used as a reference, the average salary is $59,428. Cue the depression. All right, that's enough of that. House music makes me happy. But as we just saw, there are some people making so much more money than others, this number can get skewed. A better reference is the median salary, meaning that 50% of people make above this number and 50% make below this number. So from the table from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we see that the people aged 16 to 19 make the least in terms of median annual earnings at $31,772, and this jumps up to $52,936 for ages 25 to 34, peaks at ages 45 to 54, floor at a dollar amount of $64,428 and tapers off for people ages 65 and older at $54,184. Most people would have to 3x their income to get remotely close to top 10% levels. Good luck asking the boss man for a raise. Like, hey, I want a salary, 3 times my salary actually. Okay, you'll be doing 3 times the work. That's not what they told me you would say on TikTok. And where do we go from here? So what do these top earners do? Again, back to Google. We find this article from News and World Report, and just looking at the top jobs by salary, they include what you would typically think. A lot of top doctors. Anesthesiologists, OBGYNs, and oral surgeons take the top spot, followed by nurse anesthetists, pediatricians, and orthodontists. And basically everything below this doesn't have a high enough salary to qualify for the top 10% of earners based on the previous data. So let's splash the cold water on here. This really isn't what it seems to be because it's just the top line salary being shown. This takes into no consideration the years it takes for people to actually go to med school, the difficulty of these programs, and doesn't take into consideration any of the costs associated with it, not to mention the sheer number of hours worked while on the job. We also have to remember that some people could have side hustles, second jobs, or other sources of income outside of those, and honestly, this list seems like it's a list of jobs you can explain to a group of middle schoolers, and I'm willing to bet some of you out there have jobs that don't fit into these neatly defined 1 or 2 word definitions. Some of you play a lot of different roles and are still making a decent amount of cash. And of course, these numbers are just median salaries, which means 50% of the people who had these jobs make more and the other half makes less, so it's not like you have to be a top doc to make a bunch of money in terms of salary. So I decided to look into the methodology of how this list was created, and it's not bad at all. It takes into account a lot of different metrics and factors coming from the 2023 rankings list and includes things like jobs to largest number and percentage of projected openings from 2021 to 2031 and a lot of other things. But it just doesn't feel real enough. It doesn't feel useful enough. This article doesn't seem to jump out of the page for me, mostly because most of the wealthiest people I know in real life are not in medicine. So I did some more digging, and eventually I found 2 pieces of information. One is the Forbes billionaire list, and 2 is someone with knowledge that comes directly from the people that are high earners. More on both of those in a minute. Okay, so now that we're all thoroughly depressed, house music for the win. Let's get to the more functional part of this video, where we discuss what rich people actually did to get this money, and what we as normal people can do to increase our income potential. In addition, we will address another issue after that because I don't want this video to completely ruin your day. We all know the saying, money doesn't buy happiness, so we'll go over some interesting data I found on money and its ties to happiness and living a happy, fulfilled life as well. So here's the Forbes list of 2023's billionaires, and nearly half of all of them are poor, so even rich people lose money. In March 2022, they were worth a combined $12.7 trillion, and in 2023, they were worth $12.2 trillion. But they're still billionaires, and it's not like this is money in their bank accounts. This is likely because their net worth is tied to ownership of companies, and it's kind of wild to think that given what's happened globally in the past few years, their net worth can fluctuate millions of dollars within a single day, which is insane. From the list, we can see that these people operate in a variety of different sectors, but it's pretty clear that they're at the helms of some of the biggest organizations. And $1 billion is a lot of money. For context, 1 million seconds in the past was about 11 days ago. 1 billion seconds was 31 years ago. If we are trying to extrapolate any information from the literal 1% of the 1%, it's be at the top of the largest organizations in the world. Not super helpful since these spots are limited. Let's try and find some more useful information since we know that not everyone can be a top doctor, and I mean, we already established that rich people lose money, and every one of them seems to say that money isn't everything. Maybe being a billionaire or having a job that's on the top of a list isn't really the goal here. So remember when I said that I found someone with first-hand knowledge from wealthy individuals? Well, here it is. This article is titled, "I interviewed over 200 millionaires and half of them followed the same straightforward path to wealth." From Business Insider, written by Thomas Corley and edited by Libby Kane, the author interviewed 233 wealthy individuals over 5 years, 177 of whom were self-made millionaires with at least $160,000 in annual gross income and $3.2 million in net assets. So not exactly your average person, but these are the people that a lot of us want to be financially, and in my opinion, these numbers seem much more attainable for the average person. But what did they do? He found that half of the millionaires he interviewed did not graduate from elite universities or possess advanced degrees. They did not inherit the wealth, and they did not own luxurious homes or fancy cars. They lived below their means, saved consistently, invested those savings, and gave them time to grow, which the author is calling the saver investor path. These individuals didn't advertise their wealth, so we would never know just by looking at them. So how does one walk this saver investor path? So first, you have to be saving consistently. The author states that the savings component requires living below your means and consistently saving 20% or more of your net take-home pay. The article then goes on to say you must invest your savings. So you aren't literally saving your way to millions. The investing part means consistently investing what you save and doing so prudently. The prudent part involves doing your homework for each investment and then continuously monitoring your investments, but largely leaving them alone to let them grow. The saver investors in the author's study invested in 3 places: retirement plans, equities, which is stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and real estate. The author then mentions that we have to give our investments time to grow, and it took the saver investors in the Rich Habits study about 32 years to accumulate an average of 3.3 million. The article then says that a key component of the strategy is to live below our means, which will likely require significant sacrifice, working a second job, or having a side business, but ultimately the saver investor path is available to almost everyone. Now, unfortunately, the article stops here, and it leaves out the other 50%. What about the other half of the millionaires? I need the deets, bro. Well, fortunately, the people that brought us this article also gave us another article titled, "After Asking Nearly 200 Self-Made Millionaires, I Can Tell You There Are 3 Primary Ways They Got Rich." Number 1 is the savers, which we already went over, although this article does emphasize that this path took about 32 years to reach millionaire status. So the other 50% must be in the last 2 groups. Number 2, the executives. Obviously, these massive corporations don't run on their own, and they have entire teams dedicated to the specific parts of the business. So climbing the corporate ladder, being responsible for more tasks, projects, and people would typically mean more income coming in, but also bonuses and stock compensation. Here's something really interesting. The stock compensation, irrespective of its form, was always disproportionate to their base compensation, meaning significantly higher than their base pay. This stock compensation was responsible for generating most of their wealth. Interesting food for thought, and this path to multimillionaire status took about 25 years. So on to number 3, the entrepreneur, or people who started their own business. And this group not only attained multimillionaire status the fastest at about 12 years, they also made more money than the other groups, averaging $7.4 million. But of course, we all know that this is the highest risk category and also the hardest path to follow. 34% of the self-made millionaire entrepreneurs reported they failed at least once in business, which of course took a toll on their families and in their lives. The upfront investment in time and money was significant. The early part of the journey for the typical entrepreneur was one with nothing but uncertainty. They invested most, if not all, of their time, money, and energy into something with no guarantee of success. The article continues, despite their best efforts, things often went wrong. In the beginning, there was an endless parade of setbacks, obstacles, and mistakes. With every misstep, doubt was a constant companion. These doubts filled their waking moments and invaded their dreams. Peace of mind was hard to find. Uncertainty sucked the life out of them. It often drained them of their confidence, and every setback caused them to wonder if it was all worth it. It took superhuman resilience to survive the entrepreneur's journey, but the journey transformed their lives and the lives of their families. It forced them to develop new skills, acquire new knowledge, and learn how to find and build relationships with other outstanding, success-minded people. Those who were able to survive the journey and succeed became millionaires and found happiness and fulfillment awaiting them on the other side of their journey. All this to say, there is no easy path towards accumulating wealth and becoming a self-made millionaire. The author Thomas Corley has written a few books and has some insight on how wealthy people operate, so if you're interested, I'll leave a link to his work down below. Alright, so I just told you that you have to make a bunch of money to be in the top 10% by salary, and in order to make millions, you have to sacrifice, take risks, and it's going to take years, probably decades. And there's a chance it may not even happen depending on the circumstances. That's a terrible way to end a video. So let's walk away knowing we all have a few paths we can take. All we have to do is decide which one to take, keep walking it, and one more thing. I think you and I can agree that life isn't about making as much as we can. At a certain point when our basic needs are met, which money is directly tied to, we might actually have a chance to be happy and maybe even live longer, which after a certain point money is not directly tied to. So this is an article going over Harvard's longest running study on happiness, and the article is pretty clear. Positive relationships keep us happier, healthier, and help us live longer. And with this take from the Harvard Gazette, close relationships more than money or fame are what keep people happy throughout their lives. The study revealed those ties protect people from life's discontents, help to delay mental and physical decline, and are better predictors of long and happy lives than social class, IQ, or even genes. That finding proved true across the board among both the Harvard men and the inner city participants. So to wrap this whole video up, if you want to be in the top 10% by salary in the US, you're either going to have a high-paying job or have multiple sources of income. If you want to build wealth, you're either going to have to save and invest your money wisely, climb the corporate ladder and benefit from equity, or take a risk and start your own business. And each of these paths to wealth will take a long time to walk. But ultimately, it's not necessarily how much money you make or even where you went to school or what you do for a living that really matters for arguably most of us. It's what you do with your money, when you get it, and how you choose to cultivate relationships that will yield the highest returns. So if you need permission to hang out with the homies this weekend, the data says it's good for you as long as you're not going broke doing it, so hang responsibly. Feel free to subscribe for more content. If you found value in the video, go ahead and throw a like down on the video. Let me know in the comment section if you've got any good house music. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.